Hi guys, thanks for tuning in to another book review on ForgottenWeapons.com. I'm Ian McCollum, and today's book is a repeat. This is Handguns of the World by Edward Ezell. We've actually looked at this before, but it was, I think, about 5 years ago, close to 5 years ago, and I went and looked, and the old video is absolutely terrible. And I really think this book deserves a better representation than what I gave it in that first video. So, often, the reason that this comes up is I am often asked, well, what book should I buy about guns? And this is kind of an impossible question to me. I have bookshelves of books about guns, and trying to distill it down to one is kind of impossible. I mean, it really depends on, well, what are you interested in? Except this is kind of an exception to that rule. So what's really impressive about this is that it is, well, it's 700 pages long. It is really, truly an encyclopedia of both firearms history and mechanics, written by a guy who is absolutely an expert in the field, or was until he passed away, Edward Ezell. And this was actually published by Barnes & Noble. Like, this is intended to be one of those cheapy, on the discount holiday rack sort of bookstore books. This wasn't written as a highly technical reference guide published by some obscure printer in Western Siberia, only to be bought by 5 or 10 weirdos like me. This was actually intended to be like a mass market book, as far as I can tell. And yet it has a huge level of detail. It covers a huge swath of handgun development, and it's really well written. Most of the time you get a book like this, and it's going to be either only skimming on the surface of all the subjects, or it's going to have a lot of misconceptions in it. This does neither. The information in here is great. So I mentioned it's 700 pages. The table of contents, I'm just going to read it from here, starts out with basic history of military handguns. Okay, fine. And then starts with a chapter specifically on military revolvers. The focus of the book is much more on semi-autos, but it does start with a revolver chapter to give you a good grounding in where all of the semi-auto development is coming from, because that's relevant and important. And then it's going to go on to the basic design of self-loading pistols, and then we have specifically Luger and Hugo Borchardt, followed by FN Browning self-loading pistols, American military handguns, Austrian, German, French, Italian, British, Soviet, Spanish handguns before 1938, Czech handguns from 1918 to 1939, Finnish handguns, Japanese, and then finishing up with handguns in military conflict in general from 1870 to the end of World War II, handgun manufacture over the same time period, and then an index of military handgun cartridges. And this really has in-depth detail on all of these things. So this is, for example, the best reference you will get on the development of the Bergmann pistols. A substantial amount of the information in my Bergmann series on the pistols came from this book, which you would not expect from a Barnes & Noble book. What's really cool is Ezell not only knows the information, he does a very good job of writing, he keeps things very interesting, and he understands the relationships and the implications of different guns. Like, why did someone develop this? Or why did a military adopt this system instead of that system? All that sort of information is in here. So if you want a single generalized, I can only own one book on guns, this would definitely be one to consider for that. And because of its Barnes & Noble origins, it's generally a pretty cheap book. Years ago, when I first started recommending this, you could sometimes find it on Amazon for like $3. One of those things where the shipping costs more than the book because people are just trying to get rid of these huge stacks of them. It's typically more expensive than that now, but if you were going to price this based on the quality of the information, it would be another one of these kind of annoyingly high-priced $100, $200, $250 books. And instead, you're looking at usually something 20 or 30 bucks these days. And I really can't recommend it highly enough at that price point. If it were $100 and it had always been $100, I would still be recommending it. It's really cool that it is available for far less cost. So if you're looking for a single book for someone, especially a young person who may be getting interested in firearms history, this is an excellent option. If you're just looking for one for yourself and you want it to be information dense and not just pictures, this is the one to go to. I will say that really the downside of this book is probably the photography. It's all black and white. Some of the pictures are not very good. Often the pictures that aren't very good are pictures of really obscure guns. Because Ezell does cover all the really obscure stuff. All of the blow-forward automatic pistols in existence are in this book. The Hino Kimuras, the Mannlicher 1894s, and the Schwarzlose 1908s. They're all covered in here, as are all of the, the really common, widely accepted, and widely used handguns. All the American revolvers, Colt revolvers, Webleys are in here. The 1911 is in here in detail with its development story. German pistols, the P38s, the Lugers. This book really just does cover everything. So I will have a link in the description below where you can find it on Amazon. You can probably pick it up elsewhere. You may find it at gun shows. It's kind of a pervasive book because it was cheaply available and printed in large volume. And so I don't expect it'll ever become impossible to find, but I'm sure the price will go up over time. So anyway, if you're looking for the one gun book, consider this one. Thanks for watching.